So I initially went into the organizing business as just a professional organizer. I wanted to make Pinterest perfect pantries and Pinterest perfect areas of the home that people could just look in awe of, right? Like the home edit style.
Yeah.
And then I very quickly realized that that's not what I wanted to do. I want to help people declutter and I want to help them understand what it means to actually have less.
Hey everyone, I'm Megs, and you're listening to the Mindful Megs podcast, Organizing an ADHD Brain, where you will hear stories from me and others on how we organize both our brains and our lives while living with ADHD. We talk about how ADHD can be your superpower if you know how to harness it. I found out I had ADHD 2 years ago, and it was very difficult for me to find acceptance. Now that I know so much, I want to share what I know and help others understand that this diagnosis is not your downfall. It's a eureka moment where you can now understand how your brain operates and how to figure out how to thrive. You can expect to feel inspired, like you're not alone, and learn about so many of the incredible organizational tools there are to help your head stay on straight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before we hop in, I'm really excited about this episode because for the longest time I've been wanting to do a solo episode, but one of the first episodes I did was organizing my ADHD brain, and it was only a 15-minute episode. And while I have a lot to say, sometimes I don't necessarily know where to go. So I invited my best friend to interview me for this episode today. So she is going to be your host, Ashley. She is an incredible woman, wife of mom of two. She is a director in the corporate world working in healthcare. And I'm just so proud to bring our episode to you today. We talk about so much stuff. We talk about apps, tips on organizing. We talk about my journey getting out of the corporate world. We talk about my journey into the organizing world. I talk about my experience working with a coach and talking about my mindset and my attitude as I go into each day. One thing that we highlight is I'm always working on myself. And I talk a little bit about this in the episode, and I don't know that I fully get these words out, but working on myself takes time. And every single day I put effort into what I'm doing so that I can get to where I want to go. So it doesn't ever end up looking perfect, but that's what's beautiful about the human experience is that it's not a perfect thing. And when you work at it every single day in a manner that makes sense, it's not overwhelming, it's so helpful. I also mentioned on here that I don't get overwhelmed when I have a lot on my plate. I think that's something about ADHD too, is that we can sometimes thrive when there's so much pressure on us, right? Procrastination. And at the same time, it's not that life doesn't still overwhelm me, but I take the time to look at what's overwhelming. I recognize that feeling and that emotion, and I try to understand what life is telling me about that. So for example, I had an experience where someone had asked me to work on a weekend. And originally I said yes, because of course I want to grow my business. And then that day that I was supposed to meet with them, I felt really uncomfortable all day. And it took some reflecting back on that moment to really understand that, oh my gosh, it's because I told myself I didn't want to work on weekends. And here I am breaking my own boundaries that I set for myself. And the truth is, I'm going to continue to uphold those boundaries. Life is teaching me a lesson by giving me those emotions so that I could recognize and work through it. I also talk about starting a podcast. I talk about my kids. I talk about my journey with my daughter and understanding her learning journey. She's in first grade, and it's funny when you first go into being a parent in an elementary school setting, you have no idea what you're doing. You don't know who you can talk to, what the structure is. I don't know. It's difficult. And so we navigate that space a little bit as well. Thank you so much for listening today. I'm so excited to hear what you think about the episode. I talk about so many people that have influenced me in my life over the past couple months and of course over the last year as I've made so many changes. I hope that you hear a little bit about someone that you might know, and that would be really exciting. All good things. I just started a Patreon account and I put in there this incredible video of a 14-hour project before and after of an organizing session I just did with one of my beautiful clients. I actually talk about her in this episode. And so that's on my Patreon site. I also have a clip from last week's episode with Alyssa, and we go into depth a little bit more about being an organizer with ADHD. And then, of course, she has autism as well. So check that out. Links are below. Something that I also included in the links below, I dropped some major books that have influenced my life. The 5 a.m. Club, Opal, which is one of the apps that I recommend for limiting screen time, Infinite Possibilities, Decluttering at the Speed of Life. I also talk about Faster Than Normal, the book by Peter Shankman that I highly recommend. All of those links are below. Anytime you click on a link to support the podcast, it really, really helps my will to keep going. And I will not stop. But the more you throw out support, the better. I do want to shout out the incredible Rosalind who has signed up for my Patreon account. Thank you so much, girl. She's also one of my favorite people from the corporate world. I'm so excited to see more of you out there. And whoever signs up for my Patreon account, I will shout them out here every single week. One thing I also mentioned in this episode is my purpose is to help people believe in themselves. I do that through organization and downsizing and helping people understand that their brain is not broken in ADHD. In fact, your brain is pretty incredible in what it has the capability of doing. And every single day I learn more through my own journey, through talking to other people. And I'm really excited to share today's episode with you. Without further ado, here is Ashley interviewing Megs.
Welcome back to the Mindful Megs podcast. I am your host for the day, Ashley, and we're actually going to flip it today, and I am going to be interviewing Megs. So, Megan, we've known each other since elementary school.
Yeah, 4th grade.
Wow,
That's
that's
crazy.
crazy. Yeah, that's what we've known each other for a really long time. So, we've been through the good, the bad, and the ugly together, right? And I guess we'll start off just by talking about how proud I am of you for leaving the corporate world and doing your thing, because I am very happy for you and just a mild bit jealous because
Yeah.
I live and work in the corporate world, right? What made you finally do it? What made you
Um,
finally leave?
oh my gosh, I love you. Well, first, it's about having a supportive community around me. So I remember talking to you about it, and you were so incredibly supportive through this whole process. And I wouldn't be able to do that without people who can tell me that I can do it and people that
Mhm.
have given me permission. I was talking to someone about this the other day. I loved working in the corporate world in the sense that I loved being able to help my team understand how much they could achieve. I loved
Yeah.
seeing my own growth throughout the process. I had some incredible leaders that I still hold near and dear to my heart, and they helped me understand what I'm worth. And so, toward the end of my corporate career, I realized that I was really, really unhappy. And I decided I couldn't figure out if I was unhappy because I was drinking or
Mm.
if I was drinking because I was unhappy, right? Like, which came first. So I
Yeah,
decided,
interesting.
right? I needed to figure out if I quit drinking, if I could find that passion again that I had had. And I tried to drive it up by creating different programs, by doing different things with development, maybe even holding weekly talks about how we can encourage one another, things like that. And it just never worked out in the sense that I felt like I was supported anymore. And it never worked out in the sense that I felt like I was going anywhere.
Mhm.
It got to the point where my director at the time, I had told him that I wanted to be a director. And he said to me that I needed to work in the project management world first. And I had already worked in the project management field. And there were some pretty significant changes that I had my hands in. I
Mhm.
had also gotten my project management certification. Did I have a lot to learn? Oh my gosh, absolutely. But he had his own path and his own way of thinking that he put in front of me. And I decided that I just didn't want to take that path. And if that
Yeah.
was the only path that he had decided for me, then I don't know, it just wasn't the type of environment that I was thriving in anymore. And
Yeah. I remember talking to you about it, and I remember you had so much passion around this project management degree, and we talked about it, right? And how invigorating it was and how you wanted to implement all of these things back with your team and with your company, and it just never came to fruition because the support just didn't seem to be there, which is
it's
a
a
bummer.
bummer. Yeah. And
Yeah. Jinx.
I was just I was just watching a video today and I got so passionate about it because I did this development thing. I tried to create this mural project that showed a timeline on how you could fulfill your dreams by thinking about what you wanted to do and kind of work backwards into steps that you could implement more immediately.
Mhm.
And it was a super flop. No one wanted to do it, right? I worked with my team on it because it was cool and it was my responsibility to help them develop. But there was not a lot of response. And instead of supporting me through trying something and then, like, okay, maybe we try something different or look at it differently, it was more of, we don't have time for that. We don't have time for that kind of stuff. You need to give up. You get too passionate about things. And the video I saw today, this woman was talking about how she was trying to innovate and build for the future of the company, and she failed miserably. And her boss came to her and was like, "Yeah, that didn't work out, but I'm so proud of you for trying because that's exactly what we need to do is try and fail so that we can work
Mhm.
together to figure out what would work and what will fix the different things that were going on." So, it's just so fascinating. But honestly, Ash, like, in the event that that didn't happen that way, I wouldn't be where I am now. So it was
Right.
almost like the universe leading me on the path of getting out of the corporate world. So I quit drinking. I still worked there for another couple months. I bought a bunch of PTO so I could go to Disney World and then go home to visit you and my parents. And I think I even took off a week to do some decluttering in my own house. But yeah, it worked out in the perfect way that I am where I am now.
That's so
And
good.
yeah, thank
So
you.
good. Yeah. So let's take a step back. I know you found out about your ADHD diagnosis prior to leaving the corporate world. So talk to me a little bit about how that felt for you. I know you've referenced it in your previous podcasts, but let's hear it from like your side in full. How did you feel? How did you get through it?
Yeah. I didn't even consider it as something that I could have. It was not something that was in the forefront. I just kind of assumed that I wasn't as good as other people. I think differently now, but at
Yeah.
back then, right? Even in high school, I remember seeing people who were getting great grades and I just had decided that I wasn't one of those people, right? I'm just one of those kids that doesn't get good grades. And so that's just how I've gone through life is that I'm not good enough. I just need to be part of the status quo. I need to do this and need to do that. Now, in the corporate world, there were a lot of things that I did, and there were so many people that believed in me. It wasn't as if I put myself down. It was just something that I had genuinely accepted about myself.
Hmm.
So, for example, walking into a room and forgetting something, or talking to someone and forgetting what a word was, like a word that I should know, like coffee table or something.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I just thought that I was kind of losing my mind a little bit, or I don't know what. But when I got the diagnosis, I had been talking to my neighbors about ADHD, and my neighbor has ADHD. And I was like, wow, that sounds very similar to what I do on a regular basis. So I went and saw the same doctor, and her and I talked for 2 hours.
Oh
I
my
don't think I've
gosh.
ever had a doctor's appointment that lasted that long. And she also has ADHD. And side note, anyone who has ADHD, I just feel like I can talk to forever just because we're just like going back and forth and our brains work so fast that it's just so easy to build off
You
of
can
one
sync
another.
up.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this woman talked about, or my doctor, she talked about flitting from room to room and doing all of these different things and wanting to do this, but going to do this, but then forgetting about what you're doing here and then going to here and so on and so on and so on. So when I got that diagnosis, it didn't mean much to me in the moment.
Mhm.
But as I started taking medicine and trying to figure out what it actually meant, I decided that she had no idea what she was talking about, and I hope she's not listening to this. I've told her since then, but I decided that she had no idea what she was talking about, and there's no way that I have ADHD, this thing that I've thought was for little boys this my entire life, and here I am, a grown-ass woman, and they're telling me I have ADHD,
Yeah.
and then Adam went and got diagnosed probably a month later. So here we are with new diagnoses, and I I'd had a really hard time with it. I just didn't know what it meant. I didn't know how to handle it because then I thought there was something wrong with me and now I had a name for it. Now I knew
Mhm.
everything that was wrong with me. And it wasn't until I read the book Faster Than Normal by Peter Shankman
Mhm.
that I felt seen and heard in a way that I had never felt seen and heard before.
And maybe did you realize that it wasn't actually that there was something wrong with you?
Yeah, for
Because 'Cause you're
sure.
using the word wrong, but there's nothing wrong with you. Your brain just
Right?
works differently than mine or the next person's, and that's what makes the world awesome.
I couldn't agree more. And in this book, here Shankman talks about it as a superpower. And
Mhm.
I had also heard Simon Sinek talk about it as a superpower before too. So after I finished the book, I cried, I laughed, I ran into the other room to tell Adam all about it. I decided that I wanted to adopt my ADHD as a superpower.
Yeah.
And I started to realize like this is part of my personality. And this is who I am. It's not that I can take it out or separate it. This is just what makes me me. And I'm incredibly creative. I have some incredible ideas. I'm very futuristic. There's so many things that I can attach to ADHD that make me an incredible human. So I
Mhm.
see it differently now. And I love that you say that. Like, this is what makes the world so unique. For example, I was thinking about your brother the other day. So everyone, Ashley is the oldest of 4 kids, and she was 3rd in our class. Ashley's super smart, and she was 3rd in our class. And then every single one of her siblings were you salutatorian?
No, no, I was 3rd or 4th.
You were 3rd or 4th? Okay, and
Yeah.
then all of your siblings were either valedictorian or salutatorian.
Yeah.
So,
They
um,
all showed me up.
they're rude.
No.
I was thinking about your little brother who created his own language
Yes.
when and then everyone learned it, right? In
Yes.
your family.
I
It's like,
still remember some of it.
"Oh my gosh." Like, that is what makes our world so incredible and unique, that your family literally has its own language, and it's not Pig Latin. It's, like,
No.
literal words and conjugations, and I absolutely love growing up around your family because,
Oh, thanks, Meg.
yeah, and
Appreciate that.
it's amazing to have friends who accept you for exactly who you are. So yeah, ADHD is a superpower, and I'm so proud to share that with others. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think I'm like, well, everyone must know now, right? Like if I know that it's a superpower, everyone else must know too. But I just heard someone describe talking about their daughter yesterday, and they said, she feels really insecure about it. And even people that were close to her put her down because of it. And I'm like, "Okay, well, if I can talk to one person and make them feel better about what's going on in their life, heck yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'll
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
editing and hosting and."
Yeah, hence the podcast,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think that the stigma about it really needs to continue to be broken. I think that schools are doing a much better job of identifying it and giving services to kids who have ADHD and need that help so that they have their specific space for learning and their accommodations that they need so that they can get what they need out of school. And it's definitely better than when we were kids. Like, so you're talking about how in elementary school you were just like, I'm just not smart. Which is not true. Your brain just
Right.
works differently, right? And I do think that that's being embraced more now in the public school system than it ever has been, but there's still work to do.
Absolutely. So much work. And there's so much that we still don't understand about it, and especially those who haven't done research or it's not their specialty. There's so much that we can do to have the conversations about it so that we can help people. Even my daughters, as I see them not necessarily want to go to school or Charlotte's having a really hard time reading right now. whereas Cora is not having much
Yeah.
a harder time reading. It's fascinating how different brains learn in different ways. I even asked
Mhm.
Charlotte the other day, baby, one thing that we need to do is make sure that we're learning every single day. That's so important. Even mommy and daddy learn every single day. We grow in our brains because there's so much that we have the capacity to know and understand. So how do you want to learn? And she goes, well, I want to play and I
Oh.
could learn by playing. And I'm like, okay, well, that's something. Like we could work
She's
with
right
that.
too.
She's
Yeah.
so right. There's so many ways that we could learn by playing. And yeah, it's cool to hear what they have to say.
I know learning through play is it's awesome. So I have 2 little boys, as you know,
Mhm.
similar age to your daughters. And my oldest, one of his favorite things to do lately is to draw all of the flags in the world. So pick a country, we find the flag, we draw it. So that to him is fun, right? But he is learning. So you can absolutely learn through play. So I love that she said that. I think that's so sweet.
She told me the other day too. She goes, Mommy, I just think it's a little unfair that we have to go to school 5 days a week and then we only get 2 days of rest. And I'm like, girl, you
I
are
hear that.
preach to the choir, right? Like that. You're absolutely correct there.
Absolutely correct. It's so funny. One more comment on the kid thing. Brayden, my oldest, again, he thinks a lot. He had a lot of thoughts in his head. And there was one day when you could just see he was overwhelmed and frustrated, and he was working on something that he had chosen to do, math or something that was, I consider to be educational. And I'm like, Brayden, what's wrong, honey? And he goes, my brain is full. And he identified that at I think he was
Yeah.
6 at the time, right? And I'm like, you can stop. Like, it's okay. But like, he needed me to encourage him to walk away. And I think it's so interesting how kids do pick up on things, learn, perceive things, what they think they need to do, how they don't understand if it's okay if something's not coming easy to them. It's all very interesting.
Fascinating. And what a cool thing that we're giving them the space to understand and communicate what their needs are
Yeah.
now so that they can grow up learning how to communicate their needs because
Yeah.
I didn't learn that until I was a lot older.
No, I know, exactly. More regimented, more like just fall in line and do what you're supposed to do, right? As opposed to the
Mhm.
dialogue and the conversations and the safe space.
1,000,000%.
So obviously, you had this ADHD diagnosis, you left the corporate world. So now let's kind of put it all together. You left, and how did you get to where you are now in terms of the professional organizing that you're doing? Like,
Um,
how did that transition happen, right? Because it's funny, you hear ADHD and then you're like, oh, ADHD people, the stigma is that they're scattered, right? But they're
mm,
not scattered if they can put their mind to something, and you clearly can do that. So talk to me about that.
I just made a TikTok video about it today because I think it's so important to break down everything that you want in life into daily small little steps. So one of the things I started implementing before I left the corporate world was my husband and I read the book The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharman. And it didn't happen right away because it's hard to wake up at 5 a.m. But I
So that's what it's about, waking up at 5
it's
AM?
yeah, but there's, like, other parts to it too. It's about, fueling your heart and your soul and your body first thing in the morning for yourself.
Mm,
Now that it's been over a year now, I think we read it in January of 2023, and now we've been waking up at 5 AM for over a year now.
oh my
Here
gosh.
and there, we would sleep in, but the truth is that when I sleep in, my days are not the same. They're
Mhm.
different, completely different, and I see that now that I've implemented these things for myself. In fact, you're gonna laugh at me because I decided that I want more time in the morning, so this week I've actually started waking up at 4:30,
Oh my gosh. Lady, what time are you going to bed?
like between 9 and 10,
Oh my
because but I grew up, I was a night owl. I would stay
Yeah.
up forever, and I heard somewhere say that it's common with people with ADHD or even autism that they don't wanna go to bed because they've been so overwhelmed throughout the day that they're
Mhm.
not ready for the next day to start because they see like, their brain is just like, "No, it's gonna be overwhelming tomorrow too." But the reality is we need sleep. But, I mean, that
Yeah.
was me. I constantly stayed up. And so
Oh, that's
training
interesting,
myself.
though. It's like putting off tomorrow.
Yeah, you're putting off
Wow.
tomorrow. So I'm procrastinating tomorrow, which is like not real, because obviously you don't get a good night's sleep, tomorrow's going to be even worse.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that, I actually talked to Charlotte about that a little bit more, because when she's trying to put off sleep, she's like, "Mommy, I just want to giggle and have fun. Can we just have fun and play a game?" And I'm like, "Oh, baby, like, yes, but no, because
Yeah.
it's time to go to sleep. It's time to get some rest for tomorrow. And I know you're overwhelmed. I know today has been really hard." Sometimes we'll do meditations now and deep breathing. And anyways, what was I talking about? I'm coming back.
You know, it's funny.
Yeah.
That's a squirrel moment, right?
Yeah. 1,000,000%.
The one word that I will never forget from my brother's language is "fever-dug," which means squirrel. Just to bring it full circle.
Oh my gosh. Fever duck. So there we go.
So you were talking about putting off going to bed, staying up late. And so we were talking about you getting up at 4:30 and how I think that's crazy because I go to bed at 9 and I still don't get up until 6.
Yeah. So it's been awesome because I now look forward to it. I still trick my brain every time I wake up and I can feel my body saying, "We don't want to get out of bed." I
Mhm.
say in my brain, "I'm so happy to be awake right now." I do it every morning. It's crazy. And then I don't even think about getting back into bed. So that's how I trick myself. But
Mhm.
I come out and I sit on the couch. I wrap myself in a blanket. I light some candles and turn on the fireplace.
Right.
And I turn on my meditation. I typically switch my meditation every couple months or so, just depending on what
Mhm.
I'm working on. But it'll be a 15-minute meditation where I can really get into my brain. Then I journal for about 20 minutes or so. And I talk about gratitude, or maybe even just some things that are on my mind that I want to get out of my brain. It helps to just write those thoughts out. I've also been thinking more about like getting journal prompts and things. Like, it's an evolution. I think that's what's really cool is I keep taking what I know and I'm just building upon it. So
Yeah.
after I do my gratitude, I learn for 20 minutes, which typically turns into 45 minutes, which is why I wanted to get up earlier, because I wanted to incorporate that into my life.
Yeah.
So I'm learning different aspects of podcasting. So like, just because I'm a podcast host means nothing, because I'm still a beginner. And so I'm learning different tips about making sure that the right people hear my podcast, because I really want to reach the people who want to feel lifted up. Things
Mhm.
like that. I'm also learning all kinds of things about AI, anything that I feel could help my business right now. I immerse myself in that. And what helps is I find a video that I can play on 2 times speed, because then I can just listen to it and I color. I have been I love coloring, but I could never find the time to do it. So now I feel like I'm being productive by listening to something, and then I sit down and I color. And so that's my morning. And then when the girls get up, my goal, and sometimes it doesn't always happen, so I'm working on this, is I put everything aside and I focus on them until they leave for school. So
Mhm.
so that's my morning routine, and it's helpful because I've like, even this morning I went to Pilates at 6:30, but I had already been up for 2 hours. So it's
Yeah.
insane that my day has just been going and going and going. So I before I left the corporate world, that's kind of what I incorporated it, and it's evolved from there. So just my morning routine and spending time with myself, focusing on believing in myself. Then I hired a coach in May of last year,
Okay.
and she's incredible. And she's the one for me, right? Like, she would have me do a deep breath before I met with her, and she never made any decisions for me. She just really helped me work through the process of leaving the corporate world. And I got the permission that I needed to leave from other people who have done it. I just needed to know that, like, it's doable and people can
Yeah.
survive beyond
You
this,
will be okay.
right?
Yeah.
And there was one day I remember we were gonna go into this session where we were gonna review my resume, and I've always hated resumes. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can relate to me, but I just think they're so annoying, and then you have to change it for every damn job that you do. For goodness sakes, I get it. I know it's important. Thank God for AI. I'm so appreciative of that, because it could do it for you now. And I just couldn't, as I thought about my future and what it looked like, I couldn't wrap my brain around being in the corporate world or finding a company that could meet all of my needs. Of
Yeah.
like, being able to work on passion projects and presenting in front of people, helping people believe in themselves, things like that. So my coach was so excited. She's like, "Oh, I'm so excited because I didn't see you going back into the corporate world, but you had to make that decision." So then
Yeah,
we just
sure.
decided to talk about, what am I going to do? And I had been working on a decluttering projects in my own home I had been working on decluttering my own home for about 7 or 8 years.
Mhm.
And after watching shows like The Minimalist, The Home Edit, Marie Kondo years and years ago, I got obsessed with things leaving my house because it took so much of the pressure off of what I had to do with all of that stuff. So instead of
Absolutely.
keeping it in storage, I made a ton of money selling things on Facebook Marketplace. I got things out of the house instead of putting them in storage, waiting to give them away until later. So much. And I decided I wanted to help people do that as well. And one of the reasons too is I had come home to visit my parents and they still have a house full of my grandfather's stuff from when he passed
Mhm.
away in 1994, I believe it was, and helping them go through what they had and seeing all of the emotions that it brought up. I wanted to show people what it was like to be able to let go. So I initially went into the organizing business as just a professional organizer. I wanted to make Pinterest perfect pantries and Pinterest perfect areas of the home that people could just look in awe of, right? Like the home edit style.
Yeah.
And then I very quickly realized that that's not what I wanted to do. I want to help people declutter and I want to help them understand what it means to actually have less so
Mhm.
that they can have so much more room for the creative process in their brain. So then I got kind of nervous. I was like, well, I don't want to just work with ADHD people because there's so many people out there that could use my services. But as I continued to learn so much more about my own brain and how it works and how organization has been such a passion project of mine, I want to teach other people with ADHD what I know because that just means that I'm going to continue to learn and they're going to continue to learn
Mhm.
and we can understand how to harness harness the
Back it
gift
up.
harness the gift that is our brains so that we can thrive in life. There's
Yeah.
so much we can do. So part of what I do in the mornings as well is I plan out my day. I have a planner that I also have available for a free download on my website if you want to go check it out. But I set up my day with 6 things to do and I
Mhm.
write my priorities at the top and then I align my to-do list with my priorities. So
Okay.
my priorities are my husband, my girls, my home, and my business.
Mhm.
And so if it falls outside of those priorities, I have to really consider if that's worth my time or not. And that helps me set boundaries because when I was in the corporate world, it was very, very hard for me to figure out what my priorities were and for me to manage my time effectively. I have now figured out how to do that for my life. So as I write down my priorities, I then time box it on my calendar. So I put on my calendar, okay, if I say that
Mhm.
I'm going to work on social media and do this specific thing during this time, I'm going to put it on my calendar. And then I can actually see what am I going to get done because I
Mhm.
used to make lists and lists and lists and then nothing would get done. And then I wouldn't want to look back at the list because I would feel so overwhelmed by it. So
Yeah.
I break my days into 6 to do things. I also do like little admin tasks and I will even maybe I have 15 admin tasks that I could do. So then I'll block time off and I really think, can I get all of these things done in, the time I have for admin stuff? And
Mhm.
then if not, then I move those things to the next day. And it has helped me so much. I do there's so many different apps I found on my phone that help me stay organized. I just started using this one called Opal, and it actually locks you out of apps for a specific time during the day, like during your focus hours and even in the morning when you first wake. So I can't go check social media first thing in the morning
Yeah.
for that dopamine hit because
Yeah.
I'm so bad at that. And
Yeah, I think a lot of people are.
right? So now I feel like there's so many ways to automate our lives. And that's so it's funny because I posted on social media today just about how there's so many things I'm managing right now. I have 2 young girls, so I'm always working on being a better mom. I have my incredible husband, so I'm always trying to learn different ways to be a better wife to him. Then we're going to a school event tonight, and today I did a 3-hour organizing session with one of my friends and clients, and this morning I had time blocked off for certain things, and I'm not even remotely overwhelmed by it. I can say
That's
that on
amazing.
I it's mind-boggling to me. But it's because I've planned my days in such a way that I understand that there is only a certain amount of things that I can get done. And
Yeah.
I've planned out my day. So I'm going to get at least some of them done. And then I can be so proud of that. And I can bring the other things into the next day.
Mhm.
So it's fascinating to me what I'm able to achieve after planning it out. So, like, know that I have something for my daughter tonight, so I have that planned into my schedule so that, yeah, I just know where I'm going at each step of the day. Now, do I still have trouble drinking water? Yeah. I mean, that's probably something I could add into my reminders to drink water. I'm gonna drink some water right now because I think
Do
it's
it, drink some
important.
water. Yeah, or put it in between every task that you have every day to go refill that water bottle.
I'm not trying to say that I have it all figured out because I don't. There's always something I'm trying to do. Like right now, I'm trying to give up soda. And so if I can make
Ooh,
it one
Megs,
day.
you love soda.
I know, but it's so bad for you. And it's that
Yeah,
that diet soda too. I'm like, I
Diet
just
Coke.
and people are like soda water. And I'm like, I know it's great for you. And yeah. So I'm just trying to get rid of that fake sugar in my life because it's so yeah, it's so
You
bad
know
for
what?
you.
You kicked
So
alcohol, so you can kick soda too.
heck yeah, exactly.
You
So
can
it's
do it.
actually it's been we stopped buying it. We made a rule
Mhm.
that we weren't gonna bring it into the house for groceries or incorporate that into our budget or anything. So then we'll buy it here and there at a restaurant, but slowly but
Yeah.
surely we've gotten it out of our lives. I think I've
Wow.
bought soda once in the month of March. It's been 7 days, so I feel really good about that.
No, that's huge. I mean,
Right?
if I remember correctly, you were probably drinking a couple Diet Cokes a day at one point.
Oh, million%. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And it's good that it's my choice because my dad doesn't listen to my podcast, but if you are listening, Dad, my dad told me the other day that I should stop drinking Diet Coke, and I was like, "Well, when you stop drinking alcohol, I'll think about listening to you." So,
Here you go, Charlie. So, things that I've heard you talk about that I'm very impressed by. You're constantly looking to better yourself, but you're also constantly learning, right? It's not just bettering, it's learning. And I love that you have stepped into this new career path and this podcasting and everything that you're doing right now with this attitude of, I can absolutely do this, but I absolutely know I still need to do some work to be better. And the fact that you are open minded about that and you're doing the work to get yourself to the point that you want to be at is amazing. I mean, it shows a lot of integrity. And I mean, I've said this a million and one times, and I'll keep saying it to you. I'm so proud of you.
thanks, Ash. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. I took a podcast course. Actually, I said, okay, let me rewind. I signed up for a podcast course and was paying for a podcast course that was recording all of these videos. I think I went to one live session.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I joined this group of other podcasters who were taking this course that I really started to hold myself accountable to actually starting a podcast. And
Yeah.
so it took me a couple months of saying, I signed up for the course. And then I kept saying, I'm starting a podcast. I'm starting a podcast. But in the back of my mind, I was like, maybe.
Yeah.
And then, but as I started to work with this group, they're an incredible group of women. We meet once a week and we just started talking about what's one thing we want to do and achieve for the following week. And so sometimes we would do it, sometimes we wouldn't do it. But I started saying, well, I really want to get caught up on this podcast course. I want to start watching all the videos and make sure that I know what I'm doing with the technical and the, thought process behind, getting the word out. I'm not a famous person, right? Who the heck knows who Megs is?
Right.
So all kinds of different areas, right? There was an 8-week course. So I just started late and started doing it. And so that's one of
Yeah.
the things that I do in the morning is I listen to these podcast videos. on 2 times speed so that I can absorb it. I also listen to books. I'm just always trying to learn because it just helps me give myself more grace. So anyways, this podcast course, one of the premises behind it is just do it. Like do it messy. Because if you wanna do something, you gotta take action. It's just like planning a trip. If you wanted to go to Costa Rica, you would have to say to yourself, "Okay, I wanna go to Costa Rica," but it's not like you can just sit around and wait for it to happen. You've
Do
gotta
something about
like,
it.
you've gotta look up flights, and you've gotta, I don't know, do some research, maybe ask some questions about it, and the truth is, you could book this trip without asking questions or doing any research, and you'd probably fail miserably and not have the best time in Costa Rica, but then you would learn enough to make better decisions next time. So,
Mhm,
my thought process now is I'm gonna continue to put myself out there because the more I do, the more I learn from what I'm doing so that I can grow and
mhm,
be better because of it. I'm teaching this course right now called Infinite Possibilities. And it's just that. It's thinking about like what does your future look like? What do you
mhm.
want? Put it in the GPS. Put that destination in the GPS. And then what's one tiny little action you can take towards that every single day? And
Yeah.
so as I teach it, and initially I was just telling Adam about this last night. I I thought that my presentation would get better, right? Like I was just like, "Oh, it's cool, like the more I teach it, the more I'll like know what I'm presenting so that I can help people understand." Which almost sounds like the same thing that I'm about to say, except that my under my understanding of the material and the way that I grasp it and the way that it's it's helping me implement strategies in my own life
Yeah.
has leveled up because I just taught the class. So I'll give you a good example. I was talking to this incredible woman who's become a friend. She is taking the class and she was talking about overcoming a hurdle that she has right now in her life. And then she can start to manifest like what her big plan is, right? And what she wants to do. And initially I looked at her and I was like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, I want you to address this. I think that's so important, right? Like, and if you feel like you need to do that to move on, that's beautiful. But then I was like, but what if you just imagined what your life was like when you overcame this hurdle? Like,
Mhm.
isn't that, couldn't we apply these techniques now? Which is so crazy. It's so mind boggling. It's so simple. It's so
Yeah.
simple that it feels like something that I should have gotten immediately. But I find that so many of life's big questions are so simple. But we're so busy in this crazy world that we live in right now that we don't often take the time to really sit down and understand that life is about thriving and not just
Mhm,
surviving in this
mhm.
crazy world that we live in. And
Right.
it's kind of insane that I'm sitting here and saying all the words that I am to you because I really never thought that I would leave the corporate world. I never thought that I'd have the guts to do it, and here I am. So,
I know. I know. It takes a very strong person to be able to do that. I mean, you did it.
thank you. Yeah. I did it. I feel brave. I feel brave. I feel courageous. It feels good to
And
be
I
in
think it's
this
also about,
place.
like, knowing what your purpose is, right? I don't think that you grew up saying, "I wanna go work for a corporate office for this big national company," nor did I, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, what is your passion? What do you really wanna do? And it's okay to figure that out in your 30s and go after it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be scared to do it, and you're, like, the template for that for me because you I know it wasn't easy. Like, I know it wasn't an easy decision. I know you didn't make it lightly. I know that there was, a lot of struggle there, and there were fears and anxiety and everything that goes along with it, but looking back on it, the way that you did it and the way that you were so confident in yourself, it's just like I'm not finding the right words here, Meg, but I will find them.
You're doing incredible.
Like, you even though I know it was a struggle, right? And I know it was a hard decision to make, you actually kinda made it look easy because you did it with such grace and confidence. And you were just like, "No, this is what I want." And when you made the decision to do it, you did it. And I think that's
Mhm.
what's really awesome is that you had like this epiphany and then you were like, "This has to happen because I'm not happy and I need to be happy. I need to be happy for my girls. I need to be happy for my husband. And most importantly, I need to be happy for myself because then it's all going to trickle into everybody else."
Yeah.
You
And
did.
it's so cool too because I made the decision nervous about the money aspect of things.
Yeah,
And then
of
I read the
course.
book. I read the book Don't Keep Your Day Job by Kathy Heller. She's also the one I took the podcast course through. She's awesome. But I read the book, and in the book, it's like, when you're thinking about leaving, make sure that you have this amount of money built up, before you leave your job so that all of this can happen. And I read the book after I left, and I was like, well, I did not do that. And so I was like, no, this is such a bummer. And I have not yet replaced my income that I was making in the corporate world. But what's really cool is I kept saying money comes easily to us. And I
Mhm,
never got to the point where I was concerned about money. And then Adam got a bonus structure pretty shortly after I had left. And we had been saving a little bit of money, and I sold so much stuff on Facebook Marketplace, and
mhm,
people started hiring me pretty immediately. And since then, it's just been this. I'm not letting money be a concern because I know that every single day I make steps in the right direction to get me where I want to be.
mhm.
And I'm so proud of that. And so I'm now thinking about how I'm doing so much work right now. And what I feel really good about saying is everyone who knows me right now, how cool is it that they get to say they knew me when?
Huh,
So
yeah.
that's
That's
so
manifesting, right? You're you're
right.
you're you're putting it out there that this is where you wanna be. So where do you
Totally.
wanna be?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. So my purpose is helping people believe in themselves.
Mhm,
I believe in myself, and I came from the point where I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think I could do a damn thing. In fact, I talk about maybe in an episode, or maybe I didn't even post this in an episode, but how trying out for softball in high school, we had to go to Berkshire School. Do you remember?
yes, I do
And
remember that. In the
we had
gym.
to, yeah, in the gym, and we had
Mhm,
to do suicides. And I
mhm.
felt like I was dying after that. And you know what I said to myself? I didn't go back. I didn't go back and play softball that year
Yeah,
because I was like, "Oh, I can't do those. Other people can. I saw other people doing it and I can't. So that must mean that they're better than me." Whereas obviously, if I just went and did it the next day, they would get easier, right?
right.
And easier and easier. It's a training thing. It's a day by day thing. It's a thing that you learn from growing and people believing in you. So anyways, I want to help people believe in themselves because I think that the more we build each other up, the more we can live in a world where people have more love in their hearts and
Yeah.
they can pursue their passion projects. And so one day I want to speak on stage and talk about ADHD and how it is a superpower. And I want to give those powerful examples of where I've come from and talk about the people that I have coached along the way to help get to where they want to go as well.
Mhm,
My premise is organization and how even though people with ADHD are perceived as being disorganized, there's so many tools out there that we can implement that help us thrive. We don't have to worry about it anymore because we like turn things on, right? Or we implement strategies and routines that just make sense to us.
yeah.
And so I want to talk a lot about that. I want to continue to do this podcast because I have learned so much as I go along and talk to different people and talk about their journeys. Did I tell you this the other day about the woman who told me that our cycle has a lot to do with our hormones and when we're our best at
No.
working versus our so, my friend Jordan, she is talking about how she takes supplements for her ADHD. And she said, yeah, but they don't work very well the week before my period. So I have to be aware of that. And then she plans her entire work around her cycle
Oh my
when
gosh.
she's going to be good at things versus when she's not going to be good at things. So I was like, my medicine actually doesn't work the week up till I get my period. Like, what? That's so crazy. So I now this is the first month that I'm like really paying attention to it.
Yeah.
This is tomorrow actually is the 1 week mark right before I get my period. So I've been super intentional about really being busy this week and
Mhm.
really getting a ton of stuff done because I know that next week I'm going to have to be very intentional about giving myself more grace because I
Right.
might be going through periods of not believing in myself and then I can I'm like, "Oh, I don't have the hormones right now that are helping me believe in myself because of life and the way a
Yeah.
woman's body works." So, I think when you can put a name to it, when you have an explanation for things, it just makes so much more sense for how you can thrive. So,
Yeah, and it's like it's easier to accept those things, right? It's like
yeah,
because I completely understand what you're saying. And I have days where I'm down on myself, like, oh my God, I'm no good at my job, or I'm a terrible mother, or whatever it may be. And I get my period 2 days later.
yeah,
And it's
totally.
like, oh, and it's almost like a relief. It's like, oh, okay, I was being harder on myself than I should have been because my hormones are all over the place.
Yeah. Okay. Being a woman our whole lives, one would think that we would notice that correlation and pattern and maybe implement the tools that we need to combat it or become aware of it. But it wasn't until I seriously had that eureka moment. And I think it's pretty cool that we can now, well, you have boys, but I can now talk to my girls about what that looks like
Yeah.
and be really comfortable about how it's a natural thing and this is what your body is doing at each point. Just know that the week after your period, you're going to be on fire. So go get at it and go get some shit done. And then maybe you do more of your passion project stuff that you will actually be interested in doing the week before your period. So it's so
That's
cool.
really interesting. So you're a professional organizer.
Hmm.
How do you organize your space, your house?
Hmm.
Don't be shy. Share all your tips
Oh,
and tricks.
okay, cool. Yeah, it's hard to put it all in one, but I would say that my decluttering journey and my organizational journey it's been a really long time. I think that social media portrays organizing as a one and done type of thing, as I'm going to hire
Mm,
someone, I'm going to get it done, and then it's going to be so pretty that we can keep it that way.
yeah.
But the truth is, and especially if you have ADHD and you're consumed by the stuff that's in your life, organization doesn't begin until you declutter. So decluttering is step number 1 and it's not organizing. So and that it's a completely different step. So anytime I go into a client's home, we spend the first part of the session decluttering. We take everything out of a space and we decide what belongs and what doesn't need to be there anymore.
Mhm.
And so when it comes to my own stuff and why I became a professional organizer too is it can get very emotional and lonely. And once you work on it for a really long time, it almost feels like there's no hope, especially if you have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of educating myself through the process, and I've done a lot to figure out how to support people in a way that they will feel not judged, first of all, because it's normal to have cluttered homes. We were watching The Princess Bride the other day, and even the little kids' bedroom, like, there's stuff everywhere. It's just
Yeah.
normal, like, we just grew up with stuff everywhere, like, think about kids' birthday parties. We bring home all of these little bags and trinkets and McDonald's toy like, there's just so much stuff that comes into our home, and there's not a proper way of getting it out. And so that's
Mhm.
where I come in, and I can support people through this journey, but one thing that's really helped me is doing a little bit each day. So just like
Mhm.
I organize my life and my business and getting things done that way, is I time block myself and I say, okay, I got 15 minutes, half an hour, or an hour to work on this space. And then that's it. Have I gone in and tried to tackle an entire space that's taken me all day? Yes. And it's freaking exhausting. It's so draining that it makes me never want to go there again and do it. Now, like it's full of incredible potential afterwards, but oh my gosh, there's so much. Another thing that I had to really understand as I'm decluttering and letting go is not everything can have a monetary value. So
Mhm.
you might be able to sell some stuff on Facebook Marketplace or anywhere else like eBay and things like that, but the truth is that it takes up so much of your time. It's almost like having another job where you're responding to people and letting things go. So if you don't need the money, even if you need it a little bit, but you're working on something that's building you up or you're letting this stuff go, it's almost easier to just let it go. And a book that I recommend on that is Decluttering at the Speed of Life. And it's incredible. And she talks about her journey with letting things go instead of selling things, because the truth is that we all have so much in our house that we
Mhm.
could probably sell things for years and years and years. I have been. I literally have been. And I will support people selling it, right? You have to make your own decision. You have to figure out, like, yeah, it does take a lot of time. I even made like a sheet for people who want to sell on Facebook Marketplace with all of the things I've learned, so they can kind of read up on it and just understand, okay, well, this is a good starting point and I don't have to learn all the things that Megs did.
Mhm.
And know that at a certain point, it's okay to just drop everything off at a donation place or find something that, yeah, just get it out of your house, make the decision and let it go.
Yeah.
Because if you put it in your garage and let it sit there, it's going to be another decision you have to make later. And
That's such a good point. And again, so simple, but so true.
yeah. And I even used to have a shelf in my garage for all the stuff I was selling. And I'm like, I don't have I don't want to have an inventory here. And I don't know, the monetary attachment to things is like we want to recoup the money that we have. The truth is that the time we have in life now is so much more important. The business I'm building right now is so much more important than making $20 here. I can't
Mhm.
say that for everyone because everyone's in a different financial situation, which is why I fully support sell your stuff on Facebook Marketplace. But understand at a certain point, if that's not going to be your business, is selling stuff on Facebook
Right.
Marketplace, move on and allow yourself to just let go, because when you can make those big decisions, you make your life so much easier. So, is every space in my house perfect? Absolutely freaking not. In fact, I want to do a series on like, tell me what you want me to organize in my own home and let me show you what it looks like. Let me tell you how many times I've actually organized this space and what it looks like now. Because
Mhm.
that's my journey. I'm not on a journey to make perfect spaces, although that's really fun when I find the right stuff.
Sure.
I'm on a journey to have less so that I can fill my life with so much more and I don't get decision fatigue and I can be creative. And it's really, really cool. I even talked to a client the other day. She says so many different projects she's working on and she's beautiful. She's so good at all these things like planting and jewelry making. And then as we're decluttering, she's like, oh, I wanted to do this with that and this with that. And I was like, you're good at a lot of things. What if you picked 2 or 3 things to be really good at? Maybe even just one, right? Like, what does that look like if you were to do that? So I've got a lot of different perspectives now that I've learned, and I
Mhm.
understand so much more about the professional organizing world and how it can benefit those with ADHD. So many more tips in social media, and I'm trying to be better about posting more about those little things, those little tips and tricks here and there
Mhm.
that can really serve you.
Yeah, that's great. I look at them, I use them.
Heck
I'm
yeah,
someone
girl.
who likes to start projects and not finish them. So I'm working on
Mm.
that, Meg. I know the look she's giving me, ladies and
No,
gentlemen.
no, it's more of like, I get it. I totally get it. Well, because you love to do home projects. You're so
I
good at
love
them.
DIY. Love it.
But like, think about all the things you have accomplished, like your incredible shelving unit that you created,
Yep.
that like
With my
multiple.
new saw.
Oh my gosh. You have done so much you don't give yourself enough credit for. So
Thank you.
but yeah, I mean, like, that's classic. I mean, it's so easy to start a project and not finish it because you get so
Absolutely.
excited and then we don't have time for it. Actually, my half bath in my main bathroom, I finished my main bathroom, but my half bath is still halfway painted. It's literally just painted like bloop, bloop. I
Oh, yeah, I've got one of those rooms.
good. See, like, and I have no problem with that because it's not my priority right now. That's not my priority in this moment.
Mhm.
So I'm going to allow these other things to be my priority until that becomes a part of my priority again. So
Yeah,
we'll
it'll
see.
get done.
Yeah, heck yeah. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for
Yeah.
interviewing me today. I really appreciate it. And it's so much more fun talking to you than talking to a camera.
Yeah, right? Just doing it on your own. I'm
Yeah.
glad to be here. Thank you for
Heck
asking
yes.
me.
So I love you.
I love you too.
How fun was that? I absolutely love and adore Ashley, and I'm so glad that you were able to hear our interview today. I'm pumped up after listening to it again. Some of the things that we touched on, I talked about quitting drinking. I actually ended up going to rehab for 28 days. And if you want to hear more about that journey, what I learned, and why it was important for my ADHD brain, I'm so happy to dive in a little bit deeper. I also loved working in the corporate world. I really want to stress that. I learned so much about how to speak in front of people, how to support my team, how much I enjoyed helping other people believe in themselves, which is why I want to do so much more of that now. And I'm excited to talk about that because I have had so many leaders in my life. I've had so many leaders in my life help me understand how worthy I am. And that's another reason why I'm sitting here having these conversations about ADHD, about organizing, about believing in yourself, and so much more. We talk a little bit about waking up at 5 a.m. every single morning. It really truly is a mindset thing. I've told people that I wake up at 5 a.m. and they say to me, I could never do that. I'm a night owl. And I'm here to tell you, I have literally always been a night owl. In fact, it is almost 11 o'clock right now as I'm recording this, and it's because I literally procrastinate editing every single one of my episodes. I hope to not get to this point one day. In fact, maybe one day someone will be editing my episodes for me. But I'm sitting here talking to you at 11 p.m. and I'm still going to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. And it's because my days are shaped differently and I feel so much more different when I wake up and I plan my day the way that I do. I'll also tell you that it's not okay to go to sleep at 11 o'clock and wake up at 5. It's just not enough sleep. I need more sleep for my brain to thrive. So one thing I'll do tomorrow is ensure that I take a nap. This week, I'm also planning on going to a professional organizing conference, and I'm really excited to share that journey in my Facebook group. So I'll drop the link below. I will also share on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I do a lot of sharing on TikTok, more of my general feelings throughout the day. So definitely follow along on that journey. I love being able to share how I'm organized in my own home and how it's not perfect. I want to make a lot more videos about that too, because I think that's an important thing to understand is that when you're going through the organizing process, you don't just buy the stuff and put your stuff in the stuff and make it look really pretty for you to be then organized. It takes a lot of understanding how your brain works and what's going to work for you in your home, and then understanding what's going to work for your family in your home with your husband, your kids, your partner, whoever it is. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just a one and done fix. And I'm not saying that to discourage anyone from organizing. I'm saying that to make sure you take the time to really congratulate yourself for the little things that you've done so far. And even if something's not working, that's actually a gift explaining to you how this isn't working, but how could you make that different? Like you could fail a little bit and then you can move on from that and make it better, which is so cool. Oh, and before I forget, I put together a little template for myself. It's a PDF download for my daily to-do list. I only list 6 things on it a day. I know that sounds like so little, but if you're anything like me that you make a ton of lists that never get checked off, and then next day you're making a list that's 30 things long and you can't seem to get it done, try this out. At the top, it's priorities, and then you list the things that you need to do with your priorities. Then you add it to your Google Calendar or something that's going to remind you. It has helped me so much. And then I'm constantly evolving it so that I can share and see how it helps people. And of course, share how it's helped me. I think no matter what, you can take a look at it and see if it's something that can elevate your life, even if you don't take it exactly how I do it, which is cool. So I'll drop the link for that below. It's always on my link tree, which I have down below in the show notes.
If you need help with your ADHD organization or anything along those lines, please reach out to me. If you like what you heard, please share with others and leave a review. I would love to hear from you. My contact information is in the show notes below. Share your stories, share any feedback, share what you'd like to hear next. I am also a strong proponent of taking time off for yourself, and I've included a link to Remedy Bath Skincare below. This is owned and operated by one of my favorite people who has been in business for a couple years now, and I have been using her CBD bath bombs for years, and they're so incredible. I've never had a bath bomb that smells or works better than this, and CBD is just an extra pressure taker offer, if those are the words you want to use. Check it out below. I also included my link. It's Meg Bathco, and you can save 10% off of your order. Another way you can support the podcast is by using my link if you want to try out HelloFresh. It's an amazing way to automate your grocery shopping and try new foods. It takes so much of the thinking out of planning for the week. My ADHD brain has been so appreciative of HelloFresh. We've actually been using for I think all of 2024 now. We've tried so many new foods, some that we didn't like as much as we have liked, but oh, so many amazing flavors. And I'm so thrilled to not have to think ahead to try to figure out what's for dinner, especially when my husband and I are managing jobs and then, of course, our kiddos at the same time. I want to reiterate, I am not a doctor, and most of the people I talk to are not doctors or medical professionals. What's really important here is that you shouldn't be using the show to diagnose. I wanted to make this show available to people who wanted to be able to relate to other people like them. I know I needed this tenfold when I first found out that I had ADHD, and I didn't know there were so many other people out there who had either gone through similar circumstances or were going through them at the same time as I was. So if this helps anyone feel like their brain works like other people's and we can relate to something, if you're trying to figure out if you have ADHD or not, please talk to your therapist or a medical professional so that you can truly understand what kind of options you have out there for support and, of course, for medicine. And then come here as you're along the ride for the journey and listen to people who are going through similar circumstances and understand that it's not a one-size-fits-all sort of diagnosis. There's so many options and opportunities out there for you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to hear from you.